Okay, we're live. Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, and welcome to the Netflix 2016 guide. This is going to be first in a series of 3 videos where me and Tate and the Hour discuss 3 of our favorite Netflix shows this year. This year has really been great for television. There's been many great shows out there. We've just picked a selection of 3, and we're kicking off our reviews with BoJack Horseman, which is a very weird show which you recommended to me. It's an American adult animated comedy drama series created by Raphael Bob-Waksberg, starring Will Arnett, Amy Sedaris, Alison Brie, and Aaron Paul and Paul F. Tompkins. I guess I'm clearly not reading off Wikipedia right now. It consists of 3 seasons with a Christmas special. Actually, both of us, I don't think, have seen the Christmas special, but
no, we haven't.
We've seen the main 3 series, so we can still give an in-depth review somewhat of this one. So just briefly going into my thoughts before seeing this one, you were recommending a lot of shows to me at the time. You recommended Community to me, which I watched. That was 6 seasons. I absolutely loved that one. And it's always at that time where you finish a long-running TV show and you kind of feel like you look out at the ocean of life like, what do I do now? I've gone on this epic journey with these characters. What's next? And you was like, give BoJack Horseman a watch. To which I reply, what the hell is BoJack Horseman? And you pitched me the synopsis or the plot of this, and I felt like I just needed to see it to believe it. So you have Will Arnett playing a bipedal anthropomorphic horse who lives in Hollywood, who is an out-of-work actor. And I was like, fine, okay, I'll give it a watch. Why not? And what ensued is probably one of the most heartbreaking and in-depth shows I've ever watched. Tate, you watched this before me.
I did.
Tell me how you got into it.
I was just kind of watching TV, which I don't usually do too often. I usually kind of try and watch it online on Netflix or other websites, shall we say. And I was downstairs watching TV with my family, and an advert came up, and I was like, oh, I've heard of it before. I think I might give it a try. I think I might just, I'll see what it's like. And I watched the first episode, wasn't really too convinced. I was still a bit, okay, this is very weird. Took me a while to get used to it, but now I have to say it is a heart-wrenching TV show. It's a brilliant social commentary on Hollywood and Hollywood lifestyle, as well as just a brilliant character study.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Absolutely, and I think that BoJack Horseman is probably one of the most compelling lead characters in television at the moment, I would say.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And if it says anything for the series, it's got me really hyped to see the direction they take it in Series 4. So,
I have no idea where they're going with that one.
I'm guessing this is going to be a spoiler review, because we are going to kind of do just an in-depth sort of broad discussion about the 3 series we watched. You've kind of heard our rough opinions on it first, though, that we both really enjoyed it, and it's a great character study and just satire and commentary on Hollywood in general. But you are warned there will be spoilers. So I guess we should just kick off with the lead character, right, of BoJack, and we'll go through the 3 seasons itself.
Yeah, is it better that we go through a very brief recap of what happens throughout the entire series? So we go through kind of the main events that happen all the way through the series. So let's start off with season 1. Season 1 was basically based around the idea that BoJack was completely out of work. He was reminiscing on the good old times where he had a show in the 90s, 80s?
Back in the 90s, yeah. So it would have been the 90s.
And in this TV show, he was basically the dad of a family of 3 called Horsing Around, where basically he was kind of looking after them as like a foster parent, but he was a horse.
And it was kind of like the Cosby Show, really, wasn't it? It was kind of that classic setup, and he wears the sweater and everything like that.
Really hilarious, and that's what the Christmas special is actually an episode of Horsing Around, which I thought was quite fun. And then throughout the series, he meets Diane, who's going to hopefully re-kickstart his career, as she is a publicist. She wants to make a book about his life. And Penguin Publishing, who is an actual penguin, is putting this ahead so that he doesn't go out of business. So throughout this entire series, it's Diane basically writing down all the things that go on in BoJack's lifestyle, trying to make a good story out of it, all the different hijinks he gets up to. And it includes him having meeting with his old co-stars now that they've grown up, including Sarah Lynn, who was a very, very cute, the youngest of the three kids in Horsing Around. She is now a teen pop sensation. Think Miley Cyrus.
Yeah. And that's immediately, I think, who you meant to jump to with that in terms of the troubled life.
Oh, absolutely, immediately.
All that kind of stuff. Or Lindsay Lohan, I guess, as well.
I mean, BoJack also has his agent, who is called Princess Carolyn, who is a pink cat, but is very kind of strict with everything that goes on. As a character, she is very on point, and his best friend, I would say, Mr. Peanut Butter, the dog. I say best friend like that because Mr. Peanut Butter is definitely frenemy. They got on quite well, but BoJack finds him annoying all the time. And the final person to round off the cast is his roommate. BoJack lives with a normal human being who I've completely forgotten the name of and had him in his head, Todd, played by Aaron Paul. Todd always likes getting up with hijinks and stuff like that. So there are loads of different dynamics going on there with the characters. We'll go into them a bit more in depth in a minute. Throughout the entire series, BoJack falls in love with Diane, who is in fact already has a boyfriend by the name of Mr. Peanut Butter, BoJack's almost best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And BoJack tries to confess his love to her, and it doesn't work out in one of the most heart-wrenching voicemails I have ever heard of my entire life, where he confesses his love and then deletes it because Mr. Peanut Butter proposes. And that's where Hollywood becomes Hollywood, because the D is stolen from the Hollywood sign. So throughout the entire rest of the series, it's called Hollywood. Diane finishes writing BoJack's book, and it's called One Trick Pony. And opposing to how BoJack thought it was going to be, with him being shown as like this really amazing, famous person, it's shown as a person who's really sad and depressed and doesn't have a quite good grip on life. And BoJack goes and tries to speak to Diane about it in another absolutely heart-wrenching speech, where he asks whether he is a good person or not to her, asking for her direct opinion, and she just stays silent on the matter. And that's really the first time where, like, I immediately held myself back a bit before moving on to the next episode. I had to take a small, like, 5-minute break there because I was just thinking, Jesus, that is just, God, that's so brutal. That he's asking to see whether he is a good person or not, and he doesn't get the response he wanted.
Well, BoJack all the way through really just suffers from a lack of identity. He's sort of like, he doesn't have a direction in life. He doesn't have a plan. He wants to be the great actor. He wants to claw back to that, what he started with, but just the lifestyle that Hollywood enforces upon you, and just where he's found himself in like really troubling times, he's kind of dug himself a hole that's almost impossible to get out. And as the series goes on, you just kind of see this eat away at him, even through all 3 series. And you just know that even when he has a high moment, when things seem to be going great, you know that they're going to crash even more, and that kind of continues into the other 2 series. But this series for me, and I was just kind of looking at the reactions and the reviews from it in general, and it seems to kind of mirror what mine were, because when I started watching this series, I really wasn't taking to it for the first couple of episodes. I could see that it was written very well, but it just wasn't my kind of humor, and I found myself really struggling to get into it. But I think it was probably in that episode where you say that he was asking, the voicemail one, I think that was the first time where I thought, oh, okay, this show's trying things here. It's really pushing the emotion with the character, and that's the stuff that I really, grasped onto more. And we was talking to, I think it was Tom on our channel, who started watching it, and he says that he enjoyed it when it was more just like fun weekly shenanigans with BoJack in Hollywood, and he really didn't like when it went really somber and really into the character. That was the stuff that I loved the most. I thought that was the most fascinating stuff, especially for a show like this, where on the surface it looks like a classic kind of like Family Guy or King of the Hill type show, but then when you really go into it, it really does touch on some like heart-wrenching subjects, and just kind of shows you what I imagine the Hollywood lifestyle really is. I mean, it's just completely merciless.
In fact, something that I wanted to do on all of them was, because this is really the only free series one, or one with multiple stories that we're going to be doing in this free set. I'm going to go with the best episode of the series, but also your favorite episode of each series. So I've got the episode list up here.
Okay.
I think the best episode of the series, I think, was Downer Ending, the 11th episode, which is the one where he does. The book has been released already, and this is him trying to see whether he is a good person, trying to find his mark within this life. And he goes on a complete drug-fueled, like, bender, I would say. He goes completely off the rails, and this is where he comes to kind of almost terms with what is said in the book, and he realizes that all of it is true. That, I think, is the best episode. My favorite episode, however, was Our Story is a D Story, which was the one about Mr. Peanut Butter and BoJack competing over Diane, with BoJack stealing the D from the Hollywood sign and Mr. Peanut Butter claiming to do it for Diane out of a confession of love, with the episode ending with Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter getting engaged, which really was a brilliant, funny episode, and really good kind of shenanigans in that one, with them kind of competing over Diane. And then it finished on a really somber note where BoJack confesses his love to her through the voicemail, and then he realizes that they're engaged, and he's really lost on this one.
I think you remember the episodes much better than me. I've only watched them all through once really quickly, but I guess I'd probably agree. We kind of agree that the penultimate episodes for each season are probably the best episodes, and that's a running thing through all of them, and we'll get to that. Believe us, we'll get to that in like season 3. And I've got to agree, because that voicemail moment really was. It was episode 6 of the 12 episodes, so it was exactly halfway through. That was the one where it really kind of grabbed my attention, and it's kind of heartbreaking when you go into the next episode, Say Anything, where I think it almost picks up directly from where that one left off, and Diane questions the voicemail, and he's just like, "Oh, it was just junk, delete it," and she does. You're like, "Oh God, no!" But no, absolutely. I loved that voicemail, how it kept cutting between them. The editing in that was fantastic. And BoJack's just a fascinating character to watch. He really is. And it was kind of hard to shake the Lego Batman voice for me, because I love Will Arnett. Arrested Development's one of my favorite comedy series, and he's fantastic as the voice of Lego Batman. And just hearing his voice as like another cartoon character, it was really, really great.
I only see him as BoJack now, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's all I see him as. All I can imagine is BoJack's voice, which is really testament to the character that has been created here. So that was season 1, and just the final thing from season 1, the book became successful. The book One Trick Pony, which was basically a torture of BoJack's life, became successful, and basically kick-started his career again for season 2.
And I like
which
that.
Is quite nice. Season 2.
I was going to say at the end of season 1, I like that moment where they're both sitting on the roof after the release of the book. Yeah. I believe that's series 1, isn't it? And
that's series 1.
It does kind of complete BoJack's arc for that series, how the whole entire series he's been sort of trying to make the book in his own image, and he won't accept who he is. He won't, he just sees himself as this great icon, but when he's just completely deconstructed as this broken man by Diane, who's witnessing all these things, I think he comes to realize at the end, and although he isn't completely set as a character, because now we move into series 2, I think it does give him that foundation of, he realizes where he's at now and where he needs to get to. And we kind of get that moving into series 2 now.
Series 2 takes a different turn. As BoJack is an actor, he gets an acting job in the film that he always wanted to film. Now, I didn't mention this from series 1, but his childhood hero is Secretariat, this horse who was like the best runner around. And the story behind Secretariat itself was that he was a brilliant horse. He was found to be cheating. All of his entire life was ruined because he was cheating, and he went and committed suicide. Now, BoJack idolized him before the moment where he found out he was cheating throughout his entire life, and he always wanted to show that story on screen because he felt a deep connection with the character. And he finally managed to find a director who was willing to take on the film that he'd always wanted to make. And during the series, it is really about him filming this film and him being on set with all these different characters reintroduced and stuff like that. It's also about him reflecting upon his past. A lot, I think in at least 2 episodes, it goes back to 2007 and his lifestyle back then. In the episode Yesterland, I can't remember the other one, but there was a second episode. If we look at what Diane is doing, Diane is a publicist now for the TV show, which Mr. Peanut Butter is working on, which is called Hollywood Stars and Celebrities. What do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out. Which is basically like a game show, I'd say.
Yeah.
Where celebrities answer questions on things. And Diane is running the Twitter behind those episodes. So she's basically tweeting out like social media responses, finding out what's going on with what the people think of the show and stuff like that. And that's really where BoJack meets his girlfriend for the series in the shape of a character who I cannot remember the name of.
Oh, the owl. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yes. I'm trying to find the name right now. But yes, wait a second, I'm actually going to have to go on my computer and find out. Season 2. It's played by Phoebe from Friends, who I genuinely cannot remember the name of the character.
We've prepared so much for this review, guys.
So well. Let's have a look. Plays the character. We got that half. We just need the what character does she play in BoJack? Wanda.
That's it.
Plays Wanda the owl.
Yeah.
And that's a really good kind of relationship because it grounds BoJack. Like in the first series, he was kind of off the rails. He wanted Diane so much because he connected with her and she connected back. And he lands this kind of person who I read somewhere that they designed the character to make you fall in love with her, which is unusual. But she really is a charming character throughout the series, and she really does kind of help BoJack get along with like his life as he would have wanted. He's starring in the movies, doing all this. BoJack even meets. He has a good relationship with the director of the film. However, later on in the series, the director is canned from the film because they tried to film a scene which the producers did not want in the film, and she was kind of thrown out of the film, even though it was what BoJack wanted. So he got a new director from there on in, which BoJack didn't really like, so he quit the film himself by not showing up to set.
To which they completely CGI him in the final.
Completely, yes.
That's a great cut. Oh, go on, sorry.
What I was going to say was, in the series itself, there were quite a few good moments where I think is definitely stand out. In the opening night of the show, in fact, no, we'll start off with Hank After Dark, which was Hank Hippopotamus. Is meant to be this kind of high-up celebrity talk show host, really kind of America's hero type thing. And Diane goes ahead and kind of makes a statement about him saying, we all know what he does after dark. And it never actually explicitly says, but that really is a commentary on celebrity status right now with a lot of people. And I'd say the scandals that have been going on with celebrities of that age and the information coming to light. And I think that was quite a topical episode they put in there. That was quite well done, that episode. I quite like that one. Let's Find Out, which was the episode about Hollywood stars and celebrities. Do they know things? So what do they know? Let's find out. That was the first show of that show. I'm not going to say it again. But on the opening night, BoJack is the main guest. And him and Mr. Peanut Butter basically have an argument on stage about Diane. Because it comes to light that BoJack did have a thing for Diane. He found out about the voicemail and all this, and they really do air it out on TV. And it's very awkward for BoJack because he's trying to avoid this kind of issue, and Mr. Peanut Butter really does hammer in the message that he needs to back off. And from there on in the series, he does back off completely. But I'd say that was a very character-defining moment for Mr. Peanut Butter.
What was great about that is because the character of Mr. Peanut Butter himself is almost completely perpetually enthusiastic and over the top and larger than life all the time.
Just like a dog. And yeah.
And he even has moments which are really, really funny all the time where he does slip into that more dog-like mentality. Like if Diane says, like, we're going walkies, he'll start panting and like clawing at the door and things like that.
A lot of this is based off like, I'd say, characterisms of the animals. The whole joke behind BoJack Horseman is why does the horse have the long face? Like this is why.
Yeah,
because
and I did when I first watched it. I completely didn't even pick up on that, and then you said that, and then I thought, "Wow, this show is just genius." But it is one of those shows where, as I said, when I initially heard the concept that there was an anthropomorphic horse in a world with other anthropomorphic animals and humans as well, you really do just have to kind of suspend disbelief and just watch it, because there comes a point where you don't see him like as a horse; you just see him as a regular, normal character. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if the animal thing was just a gimmick, or if there was a rhyme or reason to it, because really they could all just be people, but maybe it kind of takes I won't say takes the impact away, because you still get that, but if this was a show about people, this would be probably one of the most depressing shows I've ever watched in my life.
The original concept for it, because I think it was the two animators, one of them was really good at drawing animals, and the other one was really good at drawing humans, so they wanted to create a world where animals mixed in with humans.
Yeah.
And they also didn't like the way that Hollywood treats like celebrities and the way that like celebrity culture is encouraged, which is why they created the show like that. So that basically explains it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it works. It completely works. After a few episodes, you kind of just like, okay, the humans don't question that there's talking animals anywhere. You just completely go along with it, and it works. I want to.
What's with?
I was gonna say
Ian McBeal, the Navy SEAL.
Yeah. I want to talk about my favorite episode though from season 2, and I think it's yours. And you kind of prepped me on certain.
It's the best episode as well.
Yeah, you kind of prepped me on certain episodes that you wanted to watch with me to get my reaction from, and this was probably had the biggest reaction apart from the penultimate episode of season 3. In season 2, this is Escape from LA. This is where BoJack flees from Hollywood and goes to New Mexico to visit his old friend, kind of an old. I don't even want to say old flame, because
are you ready for this?
Yeah, go on.
Are you ready for this? It's his dear friend.
Yeah. Oh.
Now he picks up on it.
Yeah.
But the premise for this episode, the episode before, Todd has gone out of basically his life because Todd's moved out of the house to join a cult of improv comedians, which I thought was hilarious. BoJack doesn't like the idea that his director has been kicked off the film. He doesn't like the new director. He wants out of the film. And oh my god, I forgot the name again of the owl.
Wanda. Wanda
has just broken up with him, and in an absolutely heart-wrenching scene in Yes and, I think he says that people love me and then they know me.
That is really one of my favorite lines. One of my favorite lines out of all 3 seasons. I still go on YouTube. I guess it's a catharsis sometimes, and I watch some of his best speeches. It's like either that one, I think it's in season 3, the next one, where he talks to a bride who's getting married, who has second thoughts, and he kind of just lays everything out there about relationships in general, and you just they're like, damn, just BoJack laying down life lessons.
But once again, the best episode of the series, and my favorite, and your favorite, I think as well. Yeah. Escape from LA, which was really the first moment where I know that in the first series I had to take 5 minutes. This one, I didn't watch the next episode after this one for at least 2 days. I was just done.
I was take that 48 hours.
I needed it. I really did. And I was watching this and Skins at the time as a tandem, and it got to the same stage where in Skins, a massive character moment. And I literally was just like, okay, I'm putting Netflix aside for 2 days. I'm done. I do not need this anymore. But basically,
and it was one of those episodes where, like, when I watch TV, I don't know if you're the same, I very rarely shout at the screen, especially if I'm watching something on my own. This episode, I did have the moment where I'm like, oh, God, no, don't make this happen. Like, I did have that engagement with it, absolutely. And
Let's talk about the key moments of this episode, because he does go to he escapes from LA. He goes over to meet his dear friend, who we actually need the name of. So
Charlotte.
I'm going to find Charlotte. Yes, who is a dear. He thinks that because last time they met each other, she was single, she liked him, he liked her, but their career was going in separate paths. So they parted. Her in this state of crisis, and he finds out that she is married with kids. And first of all, that's probably the first heart-wrenching moment of the episode where he just kind of, it's some realization where she's married with kids and she's moved on, and he definitely has not. So he comes up with a story to take away from the fact that he didn't go all the way from LA to New Mexico just to say hi to an old friend and pop in. He comes up with the idea that he's going to a boat show in New Mexico, inland New Mexico, to pick up a boat to take back to Hollywood. And he calls the boat the Escape from LA, which is where the name of the episode comes from. Whilst he's there, he actually stays there because he doesn't want to go back, and he stays there, part of the family, for 5 months. He gets to know the family. He basically, he's happy with just kind of feeling loved and feeling belonged for once as part of an entire collective. He
gets on with all the family there. That's like the second most heartbreaking moment, is that he sees like the life he could have had, you know, if he'd have gone with Charlotte.
I'm just actually pulling up the card for a second because I need it for this episode. Come on, cast, go. But basically, throughout this entire episode, you've got the dynamic of him getting on with just, you know, the people in the house. He teaches the kid how to drive. I'm just trying to find the Penny. He teaches Penny how to drive, and he gets along well with the son as well. I don't think the son's named. He's only in one episode, but he really does kind of connect with the family, and to the point where Penny has her prom coming up. So Charlotte suggests that BoJack takes her to the prom to basically, in spite of Penny's person who she likes. So they go off to the prom. He takes along 2 of Penny's classmates as well. They have quite a good time. They have a better time than what they would have had, and they realize that. Then BoJack takes them out to somewhere in the middle of nowhere and does something that he...
Well, first, he introduces them to alcohol.
Yes, he does.
He goes and buys them... I forgot what he buys. It's just like whiskey or something he buys them. I can't remember.
I think they were going to be doing... they were doing like really weak shots of vodka. And he's like, nah, screw that, we're doing whiskey.
And I would say this is the first time out of 2 times where we see BoJack's lifestyle rubbing off on someone younger than himself, and we see where that could lead. That leads to very, very tragic circumstances in the penultimate episode of season 3, but this one's kind of a precursor to that, when we can see just how dangerous being around BoJack can be, and that's why we get a sense that, because really Series 2 is a series where everyone around BoJack is leaving, making him even more solitary and even more alone. And I believe it's the series where Princess Carolyn is like trying to well, I think he fires her, doesn't he?
Yeah,
is that in season 2? So
no, he fires her in series 3.
Oh, does it? Okay. Yeah. Well, like that happens. Mr. Peanut Butter, who again wasn't a best friend to him, but he kind of was there for him. He tells him to back off. Diane is with Mr. Peanut Butter, and she's doing her own thing. Todd leaves him. Wanda leaves him. Everyone's just kind of going out of the picture for him at the minute, and that's what leads him to go to LA, because if you're lost, you go to your past, and that's what he wants to try and get back. And sadly, even that's moved on away from him as well. So they go to the prom. One of Penny's friends has a little bit too much alcohol and starts, passing out and things like that, which leads to, well, she has to go to hospital ultimately because she has alcohol poisoning. And that moment right there is where I think BoJack has the realization.
He goes into a panic.
Because he says to one of Penny's other friends, like, look, what happened here? Okay, you saw her drinking. You don't know how she got that alcohol. You don't know who got it for her. We found her.
Doesn't want responsibility.
Exactly. And it's in that moment where he really, really panics, like, this could be his downfall if this happens. If this teenager dies, it's all caused by him. And earlier as well, when they go to the desert.
The abandoned, desert place. He does something from his youth.
Yeah.
He's still recalling back to his youth, and it's something that he did with Charlotte when they were teenagers, and it was really his first connection with Charlotte.
Was it glow sticks in a balloon, was it, if I remember?
Glow sticks attached to a balloon, and they release them out, which is really pretty.
It's really bad for the environment.
It's a romantic moment, even though it isn't really. It wasn't meant to be a romantic moment. He was just kind of recalling back to what he did as a kid, and that does rub off badly on Penny. Now, when they get back to the house, Penny wants BoJack, and BoJack knows that she is way too young. He doesn't want that kind of thing to happen, and he completely rejects Penny straight off the bat. And it's a stage where Penny is confused because she's kind of, over these 5 months, she's got to know BoJack, and she's basically fallen for him.
And she's come into adulthood as well, you know, like hormones raging to confusing time, and I guess she just thought he's the only person who really saw her for who she was.
Yeah, and that leads to BoJack rejecting Penny and going into the back garden and seeing Charlotte is still awake. He speaks to Charlotte for a while, says how it was a good evening. A couple of people got a little bit drunk, but it was all okay. And then BoJack and Charlotte have a moment themselves where BoJack kisses Charlotte. And I'd say this is where BoJack goes off the rails completely. Like, from this point on, that was it. Game over. Charlotte says, "I want you gone tomorrow." I think he's been there for long enough. BoJack then goes off to go sleep and sees that Penny is still awake, still there. Once again, BoJack says, "Just go. Like, leave me alone." But he leaves the door open to the boat. Now, this is where it jump cuts to Charlotte, again, sat out in the garden, kind of thinking, what did I just do? Why did I just kiss him? And she sees a balloon. She sees a balloon with a glow stick attached to it, remarking back to her childhood. She follows the balloon as it floats towards the boat. She climbs up on the boat. She opens the door, and she sees Penny and BoJack ready to go. In what is the moment where we both went, no. Just no. And even she says no at that point. Charlotte,
and then she says, like, "I want you gone immediately, otherwise I'm calling the police." And that's where the episode...
No, it wasn't just "I'm calling the police." There are very few instances, even though this is like, we'd say this is an adult cartoon program, the use of swear words is only used once or twice throughout each series. And every single time it hits hard because it's unexpected. You expect, because you don't hear swear words throughout the entire series, until it hits, and this one absolutely cut me to pieces. And she says, "You're leaving now, otherwise I will fucking break you." And she slams the door. She goes out. BoJack knows that he has not only just gone and screwed up his past life, he has gone and screwed up a kid's future. He's gone and screwed up one of his dearest friends. He has screwed everything up as part of his life. And that's where he does go back to LA. And this episode was poignant. It really was. It was a turning point in the series because it showed that BoJack can go too far. And everything that was said in the book, One Trick Pony, is completely true. And he needed to admit that.
And after we watched this episode, I asked you the question of where, when Charlotte sees the balloon from her youth when she was with BoJack, do you think she was having second thoughts and she was going to go to BoJack and try and reconcile, or maybe make a go of it, even though she had a family? Because doesn't he say, like, it's kind of a cliche, but like, "Run away with me, we can still be together, it's not too late"? Do you think she would have been swayed a little bit after seeing that?
I think when she saw the balloon, she thought, "Oh, it's something that he did. It reminds me of the times where I was in love with him." And I think she was going to go and say, "Look, I'm sorry about earlier," or maybe "You can stay as long as you want," or even, "Okay, let's go now."
Yeah, because even when we see her family life with the new person she's married to, we really don't get much of an exchange between those two. There doesn't seem to be any love there between them, or any kind of connection.
There's nothing there other than the occasional kind of laughing at the table at the same time, but you're not sure whether they have the same joke.
It's like she has settled hard, you know, during this life. And I think that BoJack was that excitement in her life. And because they weren't together for ages, and they did have that natural chemistry when it flashes back when they were leaving. Yeah,
referencing How I Met Your Mother, this was an overcorrection for her. She was with BoJack beforehand, this kind of lavish, famous person who had this extravagant lifestyle, and she was deeply in love with him, and they had to split. and she's overcorrected. She's gone the complete opposite, gone for someone who's so plain, so ordinary, and she has completely settled for that.
Absolutely. And then we finish off the series with Out to Sea, which we always say the penultimate episodes are the best, and it absolutely is. I'm just trying to read what actually happens. Is this where he's...
Out to Sea, this is where BoJack goes and rescues Todd from the improv comedy cult.
Oh, yeah.
And the entire plot is set around that.
I didn't really care for this one, to be honest, as a season finale.
There was one moment in the season finale which I did like, though, which was when BoJack finally, throughout the entire series, he's running up this hill. And he gets closer and closer to the top every single time, but quits. And at the end of the series, the final episode, the final moment, he gets up to the top of the hill, and the monkey, who's been running up every single day, every single episode since series 1, leans over him as he's laying almost like out of breath on the floor and says, "It gets easier." And I think that's a real nice moment, especially when you see in series 3, when it goes back to the back to 2007, you see the monkey running again with his wife, and you realize that he has been running this whole time without his wife, and his wife has probably passed away. And him saying it gets easier, it connects everything together, man.
Oh, I never even thought of that with his wife. Yeah. We haven't really talked much about BoJack on set of his film either. The moment where he's meant to cry on camera, and he's just feels just completely empty as a character. I mean, you completely connect with him in that moment after everything he's gone through. He just can't feel emotion anymore, and he's getting frustrated because I think he even gets almost panicky and a bit scared because he knows that this scene's coming up and he knows that he can't deliver on it. And I don't know if it's the first take or if they try and he's just not getting it. But
it's the first take. He's being asked to cry, and I can't remember what the director's name was for the film. But she basically takes him aside and says, "Look, I know what this means to you, and I know it's very difficult to cry right now, and I know that you may not even be able to cry. But we need emotion here. How would you react to this situation?" She steps away for a second, and he just kind of sits there silently, and he says, "Okay, I'm ready for the take," and she says, "I've already got it." And that really was a beautiful moment.
That's one of my favorite moments from series 2 because and later on in the series, which you talked about earlier, where they want to film a scene, the studio don't want it, so they fire the director and bring on a new one who's just... We see him in action, which is actually some of the funniest stuff, I would say. Especially that moment where where BoJack goes to the director's house and he threatens him across the table. But that is what goes on in Hollywood.
Dude, it's not Casablanca.
Yeah, which he meant as literal.
Yeah,
not
so this director's saying oh yeah, it'll all this
we'll
film,
fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post-production. It's not like we're filming Casablanca. And BoJack thinks, okay, so it's not like we're filming the most amazing film of all time. So BoJack kind of almost gives up in his scenes. And this director comes along and says to him, "Yeah, it's not like we're filming Casablanca. We are literally not filming Casablanca."
To which BoJack realizes, I've made a horrific mistake. And then the new director's like, "You know what? You want more takes? You want to go for more takes? I'm going to make you do as many takes as I can from now on. After all, we're not remaking Casablanca." But you see that go on in Hollywood. I mean, if I'm thinking of other films, it's not where a director's been kicked off a project and they've changed it, but even with stuff like Suicide Squad, where once it gets put into post, the entire tone of the movie and the actual movie itself is changed. Characters get cut out of it, like Jared Leto as the Joker, and he rages against it afterwards. It still very much goes on with mainstream films, so that was kind of fun to see that. But I definitely think season 2 by far stepped it up from series 1. Series 1 came into its own about halfway through and picked up towards the end, but 2 really took the character of BoJack to amazing places and sets him in a really, really good starting position again for season 3. I think at the end of series 2, isn't he nominated for an Oscar? And that takes it.
It's at the start of series 3.
Yeah.
So let's actually go on to series 3 now, which was the series that came out this year, July 22nd, to be precise. this series is all based around the idea that BoJack's film has been successful. He didn't know whether it would be or not, and he wasn't there for the filming of the final few kind of, like, I'd say half an hour of the film. He wasn't there to film like half an hour's worth of the film, but they all did it in post-production. They got a complete kind of CSI CGI scan of his face and just kind of put it throughout the rest of the film. And they think it might be nominated for the Oscar, and that's what BoJack is kind of. He's like, okay, it's not only successful, but I might be going somewhere here. I really might. And most of the series is based around him going around the award circuits, just kind of seeing where he gets nominated, if he wins or not. Really well done.
And this is the series as well where we're introduced to his personal assistant.
Oh, hello.
You there?
Hi.
Okay, cool.
Can you hang up? What do you think of that?
No. I'm good. Actually, yeah.
How many
Cheers.
seconds? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Slight interruption, just getting my shopping list done.
Take this, everybody.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just to say this is the series where we're introduced to BoJack's PA as well, I guess, or the person who's helping him sort of craft his persona for the Oscars. And again, I've forgotten her name. We are so prepared on this one today, Tate.
Is it Anna? Anna Spankipota?
I'm gonna say yes.
Maybe.
But she's a great character as well, because we don't really know where her loyalties lie all the way through. And there's even an episode where, you know, she's of other celebrities during the Oscar season, and maybe she isn't devoting enough time to BoJack. And there's a scene where BoJack sort of like follows her back to her apartment, and although she has this very sort of meticulous, very cold, very calculated persona in real life, when he gets back, he sees that she's
Spanakopter.
Yeah. And I really liked her character, actually, and that we'll talk much more about her moment in the penultimate episode again.
I think.
So,
I'm trying to look. Maybe. I think so.
Yeah. But no, so really this is like the whole Oscar process, and it's kind of BoJack where he's still being very self-critical. He still doesn't believe he deserves this award. He's very apprehensive towards it, but then as the series goes on, he kind of is more okay with the idea, and he starts being a bit more competitive, and he does really want the Oscar. And that's what precedes him to sort of like yell at his PA when she's devoting other attention to. They don't specifically say the celebrity names. It's like a spin on classic celebrity names like George Clooney.
Except for Jessica Biel, who was married to Mr. Peanut Butter.
Yeah.
And if you look at Jessica Biel's Wikipedia page, it does actually say that she was married to Mr. Peanut Butter. And I think in an interview at one point, someone did ask her, what was it like being married to Mr. Peanut Butter? And she says, oh, he was such a dog. I didn't like him really.
But no, so go through what are some of your favourite parts from Series 3, and we'll sort of take a review.
I'm just going to start off by saying that my favourite episode was not the best episode of the series.
Mm-hmm.
My favourite episode was Fish Out of Water.
Yeah, and this was another one that you recommended to me, wasn't it?
This was the Under the Sea episode, and literally 2 lines of dialogue in the entire episode.
Yeah.
And except for the start, it's phenomenal. It really is. And the director's name was actually Kelsey from the previous film. And it's basically him trying to promote it to Pacific City, which is a city underneath the water. And he's got this like bubble helmet on the entire time. And there are certain rules which you don't do in the water, like stick your thumb up or anything like that. That's a big no-no. And he basically, whilst trying to pursue Kelsey and apologize for the way the films turned out, the fact that he managed to finish the film and she was kicked off the project and had to move on to other things, he finds a stranded, I'm going to say sea giraffe, because that's what it looks like. Best way of describing it. And it's him having a connection and almost going on this underwater adventure, trying to find its home. And
it's a seahorse.
See, oh, there we go. That makes more sense now.
Not a sea giraffe, Tate. I was thinking, like, what's he on about? It's a seahorse.
It doesn't even look like a normal seahorse because it's got actual legs, but that makes sense in the show now.
Yeah, because it's always the male seahorses that give birth, and that's why you have this guy seahorse that just gives birth to like about 6. Is it like 6 seahorses or something like that?
Yeah, but like it's an emotional episode because it takes you on this roller coaster. It felt longer than 26 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and say, even though it was one of the shortest episodes in the series.
It was just a really, really creative episode, especially like just everything, like the sight gags,
the cinematography, everything about it was just beautiful.
And I would say that this episode as well, we see another side to BoJack that we haven't really seen before. And that's kind of his paternal side. We started to see a little bit of that in the penultimate episode of Series 2 and in Horsing Around as well. But I would say this is where it really hit home for him as well as the viewer a lot more. And that kind of continues into the penultimate episode as well, which we'll get to in a minute, which sadly has very, very tragic circumstances to the character. But I think that ultimately the theme of Series 3 is that BoJack's trying to make amends to everyone in his life and to himself almost.
Yeah.
This is the series where he realizes all the bad things he's done and he's trying to correct them. That goes for Sarah Lynn, for Penny, really and all the people closest to him in his life as well. And that's why I really like the series. I think overall I like Series 2 more because we always describe it as like the middle chapter in anything, and I think that's why
I actually personally prefer Series 3. I saw a lot in Series 3. Series 3 had more character moments than Series 2. From Series 2, I remember Escape from LA the most out of all of the episodes. From this, there are 4 or 5 standout moments in each episode, which makes you just... It really takes you away from what would normally be just an average TV show, and it excels there. At the end of the episode, which I think is probably the most heartbreaking moment of this episode, Fish Out of Water, he writes a message to Kelsey, trying to give it to her to apologize for everything he's done. He writes out a whole message, he gives it to her, and he finally confronts her, and because they're underwater, all of the ink just kind of fades away. And it's a really poignant moment because BoJack just kind of realizes that he can apologize as much as he likes, but sometimes things will always fade. He will never be able to reclaim that from Kelsey. And then the funniest moment of the episode where someone speaks to him using a button on the helmet that he has, showing that he could have spoken to anyone this entire time, and he's been silent throughout the entire episode, which I thought is genius. Yeah, because no one had actually told him at any point, "Oh, if you press this button, you'll be able to speak to people underwater." But at that one moment, he suddenly realizes that he's just been silent this whole time, and he could have apologized. And it's a moment of frustration for him, but it's also a moment of him realizing that he's okay with that kind of mistake. He at least tried, in various means, to apologize.
And we will come back to the Pacific Ocean later on this series for a catastrophe that almost befalls them. I actually want to talk about the following episode to that, Love and/or Marriage, which is the monologue I was talking about earlier, where he's trying to talk to a bride who's having second thoughts. And I've just brought up the transcript of the episode, and I just want to read that little bit of a monologue he has because it's some of my favorite dialogue I've ever seen. He says, "If you're lucky enough to find someone you can halfway tolerate, sink your nails in and don't let go no matter what, because otherwise you're just going to get older and harder and more alone, and you're going to do everything you can to fill that hole with friends and your career and meaningless sex, but the hole doesn't get filled. And one day you're going to look around and you're going to realize that everybody loves you, but nobody likes you. And that is the loneliest feeling in the world." Man, I think as soon as I watched that moment, I think I messaged you straight after and I was like, I have a new favorite monologue in this show, Tate. I have a new favorite moment. And by God, it is so true. And it's that where he's trying to make amends and he's trying to be a mentor figure. And we can talk about some of our predictions for season 4 and onwards at the end, because you've got quite a lot. And that's one of the things that you think is that he's going to move into teaching. He's going to be some kind of counselor or, speaker, motivational speaker or something like that. And that moment absolutely cut me up when I first watched it. And this is where, with season 2 and especially season 3, it really does come into its own as a show to be reckoned with.
It totally does. And even in that episode, you've got Princess Carolyn going on a series of blind dates that fail. It's her trying to, because she's always been kind of work, dominated
Career
and
over,
experience. Yeah. And in the end, it just doesn't work out for her in that way. And I'm trying to find out which episode, because there is an episode in this series where basically her job falls apart completely and she is the villain in her own story. That was one of my favorite episodes of BoJack Horseman in general. I just don't know which one it is.
There's that competition at work, isn't there? Because there's that other co-worker who's trying to outdo her with everything. But also, I think
that was series 2.
Oh, was it?
That was series 2.
Because I watched them all back to back, they all kind of get muddled for me. But this is going way back to like series 1. But we talk about Princess Carolyn's relationships. There's that one character who's like a little kid posing as an adult. He's like on
three
stilts,
kids piled on top of each other.
Yeah, in a trench coat. And he works in business.
Vincent Adultman.
Yeah, that's it. Business and numbers, and Princess Carolyn can't tell that it's 3 kids stacked on top of each other.
I think I think you've got that all wrong. She can tell. It's just that the way that where she is at her moment in life, and she needs that, and she'd much rather live in the illusion that it is a normal person than come face to face with the reality that she is lonely.
See, I don't think it was, because we have that brilliant episode where, again, it might be series 2, which is almost like the Mrs. Doubtfire moment, where the kid's having to pose as the kid's dad and as Vincent Adultman himself.
I'm going to go ahead and say that once again, that is Princess Carolyn trying and wishing that it wasn't true, hoping to admit that she doesn't have to admit to herself that she is lonely. She'd much rather live with the illusion and almost play along with it than be kind of this lonely person who's dedicated to her job, and it's what she needed at that moment in time.
Yeah. But I mean, she evolves on, and I can't remember the name of the character, but he's a mouse that she meets on the blind date.
Stilton.
Yeah.
Can't remember the first name. The last name is Stilton. I will actually find it because I know what half the name is, so I'll be able to actually find it this time.
And that was a nice moment. That was a really nice, believable chemistry between
Stilton.
the two.
Ralph Stilton, the mouse, and Princess Carolyn, the cat, and it works.
Yeah,
it really does, and it puts her in a better place. And when BoJack completely rejects her once again as his kind of agent, it like she has someone to fall back on finally, and she isn't affected by it as it was the first time. And it's a moment where, like, we'll talk about when we get to it, but in the second to last episode, he goes to Princess Carolyn's house and he's basically on his knees apologizing to her, or maybe that was the last episode, but he's basically on her front lawn and he is begging for forgiveness, and she walks away, which shows that BoJack has made mistakes far and worse than he can reflect upon. But I do want to talk about... Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just saying, and this is where it all culminates, essentially, where... To me, this could almost be the last series if it was, but the final shot obviously leads into the next one. But I like that it almost ends on a tragedy where he is trying desperately to make amends for everything he's done, but because he's been doing it for so many years, and it's difficult for people to forgive him for all that stuff, it's making him almost be in a worse position than he is, which in the final episode, in the last moments, I mean, what could have happened if it hadn't been for the thing he saw as he was driving would have been a very, very different end for the show. But we've alluded to it enough. I think we should talk about the penultimate episode now. That's too much, man.
I would like to talk about another episode first, but I want to bring up the transcript.
Okay. Yep.
It's it's the episode before that, actually.
It's you.
Yeah. I can't find the actual transcript for it, but I do want to actually say the speech. So this episode basically it's based around the idea that the Oscars have done their kind of announcement, and Mr. Peanut Butter says, "Oh, BoJack's been nominated. Congratulations." However, it isn't correct. He doesn't actually get nominated for the Oscar, and it's one of those moments where I still can't find the actual speech. So I'll do the other speech from the next episode. But basically, BoJack goes and has a party in his house where he says, "Oh yeah, I've been nominated. This is the most amazing moment of my life." When actually he wasn't nominated. Mr. Peanut Butter made a mistake because he lost the thing and he blagged it. And BoJack then basically goes and tries to destroy his own life. He goes and confronts all the people as part of his life who have kind of made things terrible for him. He goes and fires Princess Carolyn. He goes and talks to Todd and tries to kick him out the house. And Todd, in fact, has this moment which was really, really well done, where basically he says, "It's you. You are the things that are wrong with you. You are the person holding your own self back. You are what's wrong with you. Like you blame it on other people and the environment you've been left with around you, but it's all you." And that really does. It completely reflects what happens in the next episode.
And it's a great moment for Todd as well, because Todd's always been the character since series 1 where he's been the character that's always been beset upon. It's like, it's like Meg from Family Guy. It's like, oh, shut up, Todd. Like, what do you know? And Todd's really kind of like the heart and soul of it, really. He's sort of like the everyman.
Todd, this series, becomes a business partner with Mr. Peanut Butter. He rebuilds a relationship which he had in the past with his first girlfriend, who I do need to find the name of, definitely, because she has a big moment in the final episode as well.
He becomes a millionaire for a few seconds.
Yeah, Emily, I believe. But like his relationship with Emily, it's very unusual, and they do discuss in the final episode. I have words to say about it as well. But basically, he becomes a more stable person from the improv comedy cult that he was in the last season. It's just nice. It's a real nice moment. Now we move on to That's Too Much Man, which I'm not only going to say is the best episode of the series, but it's probably the best episode of BoJack Horseman in general.
And it's a very fitting title, because I probably said the same to you as soon as I watched this episode.
This episode really only has 2 characters, 3 I'd say, that are important. And that is BoJack, that is Sarah Lynn, and that is Penny. So basically, BoJack, he's lost all of his friends. He's rejected everyone from his life. And the only person he has left is Sarah Lynn, who's just gone, 6 months sober, something like that?
Yeah.
And BoJack ruins that immediately. He really does.
This is what I mean. It's the bad influence of BoJack being around him. He is a very toxic person. Although we connect with him and we sympathise with him and we want to see him do better, ultimately he is a tarnished person.
This entire episode, you could write an essay on it.
Yeah.
There's so much deeper meaning in this episode alone. It's incredible. And I just want to start by saying, at the start of it, you've got Sarah Lynn, you've got BoJack. They get drunk, they do all these things in their own house, and BoJack actually starts skipping time in his head.
Yeah,
he starts
like
jumping forward hours. And I'd say that was this kind of start of, okay, something's going wrong here. And I thought this episode was going to be going wrong for BoJack, but I'm going to talk about it a bit more in depth in a second. They go to this, I'd say, is it AA meeting? Alcoholics Anonymous?
They crash an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and then I think BoJack blacks out again, doesn't he? During
but first, BoJack says, this kind of mid-tier thing where basically he explains that he ruined Penny's life.
Yes, and he's determined that he wants to make amends to everyone in his life. However, the blackouts kind of impede that somewhat, and there's a moment where he approaches. Was it Anna? Did you say? And there's a theme running there, which I'll let you talk about.
There is a speech. Basically, BoJack blacks out twice.
Yeah.
He blacks out the first time and the second time, both when Anna is kind of teaching him a lesson, and there's even a week's break between them. And it shows that BoJack has completely lost control of his sense of time, his sense of worth as well. And Anna basically has rejected him all the way through this, has kind of avoided him. BoJack hasn't been able to reject him like her himself. And she goes up to him and says, I just need to BoJack says, "I just need to know what you're trying to tell me about being a lifeguard, and then I'll leave you and you'll never see me again." And she goes, "After I almost drowned when I was a kid, I decided I would never be weaker than water. So I became a lifeguard. On my first day of training, my instructor told me that there was going to be times where you'll see someone in trouble. You're going to want to rush in there and do whatever you can to save them. But you have to stop yourself, because there are some people you can't save, because those people will thrash and struggle and try and take you down with them."
And it's a beautiful image, and it really just does sum up the entire character of BoJack. And the thing is that those two had great chemistry together. And you say this like most of the relationships with BoJack. I could say that in series 1 he had great chemistry with Diane. There's an old history there with Princess Carolyn, with Charlotte, even with, it's weird, but even kind of with Sarah Lynn as well. I mean, I would say that's a very close friendship though with that one, because they're the only two people that see each other for who they are and understand that their problems and know that they don't like each other. They don't have to put on a front with each other. They get to be exactly who they are. And that's what ultimately makes it the most tragic episode for me.
Wait a second. First, after that speech is done, he goes to Ohio. He tries to track down Penny.
Yeah.
And this is something that I'll talk about when we finally get to the absolute pinnacle point of the episode. But when he goes to Ohio, he thinks, okay, I've got to make amends. He's going to spy on her, see how her life is sorted out. And he finds out that she's perfectly fine. She wasn't affected by it.
But he can't handle that.
And
he has to see
cannot handle that even slightly.
Yeah.
He needs to see that she is broken inside, because he is so destructive that even when he finds someone who he thinks he has completely destroyed the life of, he wants to see that she is in trouble. She is in need of help.
And I think it's because he feels that way himself about the situation. He has to feel that she has to as well. Otherwise, that he's gone through all this emotion for ultimately nothing.
And I'd say at this point, because he was halfway through kind of going to see her and backing out, but then people point to him out, and Penny kind of freaks out and says, "Wait, you tracked me down? You came all the way over here just to see me, even after you ruined my life?" And stuff like that. And BoJack then kind of, she runs away. BoJack tries to get away. And he realized that things were fixed. Things were completely fixed. And he's just gone and shattered it again.
Even Sarah Lynn, who's also on this massive, mad alcohol and drug binge with him, she's like, she looks fine. Like, don't get in the way. But BoJack has to do what he has to do. He has to feel that he has to make amends. And I don't know whether we'll see Penny again in future seasons. I expect we will at some point, because there does need to be some kind of closure there. But it's a very tragic way that we leave a character at this. And then, should we get to the big moment?
Wait a sec. So they go back to the car.
Yeah.
Sarah Lynn pops the sunglasses bonnet area. And finds BoJack, which was a drug earlier on in the series, which was referenced. They take BoJack.
It's basically heroin, isn't it?
Basically,
is it heroin? Yeah.
It's a very strong strain of heroin. And they go to this kind of motel. They watch the Oscars. Sarah Lynn realizes that she actually won an Oscar for Best Original Song. She didn't realize that she remembered she was nominated. And one moment that stuck with me from the episode was probably number 3 things that stuck with me with the episode. This was number 2. When she's won the Oscar and she's sat in the motel room, she kind of goes into a panic attack about being doomed, and like the fact that she doesn't fit in and she doesn't like who she is, and she wanted to change. And she tried changing, and even after she tried changing, she still couldn't do it. And when the award is picked up, it's picked up by a character we'd never met before, who I'm going to go ahead and say is Sarah Lynn's foster parent, who says, "Please come home, Sarah Lynn. We've missed you. We haven't seen you in ages." Which is a really big moment, because she kind of brushed it off, but BoJack realizes it. Like, when you see the scene, his ears actually prick up, which is something that I think I haven't seen discussed anywhere, but I noticed it definitely. I think that's where BoJack says we need to go to the planetarium, because he realizes this whole time he's just been kind of doing things that he wanted to do. and yet now this is something that Sarah Lynn's been asking for the entire episode. And he says, okay, look, she's in trouble as well, probably more than I am. Let's go to the planetarium. And they go there. Sarah Lynn talks about how she loves the architecture of it. And she says she wants, I'm actually going to read it. The entire scene. So the voiceover says, our solar system formed about 4.5 billion years ago. Sarah Lynn says, isn't this place amazing? BoJack says, totally. I've always forgot that there was more than 6 stars when you can see Los Angeles sky. And Sarah Lynn isn't caring about the stars. She says, yeah, that's cool, but I meant the building. It's a giant dome. Domes are cool. She then says, I want to be an architect, which is something that she said previously in the series, especially when she's getting solemn and trying to almost say that she's never wanted to be like an actress. She's always wanted to be an architect, and maybe her parents pushed her to that. And then the speech at the end by BoJack was the most heartbreaking speech when put into context. He says, see, Sarah Lynn, we're not doomed. In the grand scheme of things, we're just tiny specks that will one day be forgotten. So it doesn't matter what we did in the past or how we'll be remembered. The only thing that matters is right now, in this moment, this one spectacular moment we are sharing together. And then he says, right, Sarah Lynn. And at that moment, he begins to realize that Sarah Lynn is no longer there. She's dead. And it is the most...
I get emotional just hearing that again.
Just is a punch to the gut, it is. It truly is. And I just want to go ahead and go across a couple of things. The last word that she said was, I want to be an architect, which reflects that what she always wanted. She expressed her dreams in her final moments. The entire episode, you think you're being told that BoJack is going to try and hopefully make the rights that are wrong with all of the characters that he had done wrong throughout the series, especially Penny, this one character who he truly did fuck up, and he doesn't realize that the one character who needs the most help is the one right in front of him, the one who has been on this journey with him, and she's the one who passes away in her father figure's arms in the place where she loves, saying her dreams. Like, it's just, oh my god, everything about that scene was just stupid, and it did bring me to tears the first time I watched it.
And we watched that episode together again because you wanted to see my reaction on it, and I think I probably had exactly the same reaction to the episode as you did at the time when you hear that silence. When
you were almost, dude, you were so close. I could see your eyes reddening up.
Yeah. And it's kind of going back to what we said earlier, where it's showing that paternal side to BoJack, especially when we see. Don't we get flashbacks in the episode to when Sarah was on set with him? Or am I remembering that wrong? Or is that throughout the series?
You get that in the next episode.
Yeah.
You get a flashback when she was on set.
And it is the best. I would say it is the best episode of all the BoJack Horseman so far. And it really is a tragic ending for it. But I think that ultimately they were each other's worst enemy. Neither of them were helping each other. They were basically both the same character. They had the same destructive lifestyle. They had the same just sense that they were lost. And putting those together is a recipe for disaster, which ultimately ends it. And then we move into the final episode of the series, which is That Went Well, which is him trying to deal with this. And BoJack, I think once he's left because he left Secretariat to take on this stage play, like a sitcom again, in similar vein to his old TV show Horsing Around.
It's called Ethan Around, and it stars the male member of the younger cast who was in the original series. And it's one of those where he wants this this thing to happen. He wants Ethan to be okay because he's one of the people who he maybe hasn't stayed in as much touch with. But he knows that if he can get that right, then everything will be okay in the end. And he speaks to this little kid on set. And he has a good moment where he's like, oh, you're doing a really good job here. Like, everyone's really proud of you. What do you want to do when you grow up? And she just turns to him and says, I want to be like you. And BoJack goes into a complete panic attack because he knows how far that has taken him. and that makes him want to just believe it all.
It's just history repeating itself again with Sarah Lynn. And he just gets out of there. I think he just leaves the set, doesn't he? And just goes on
He
a
leaves
drive.
the set, he leaves the city. And
Yeah.
that is BoJack for the series. But the other characters had their good moments in this episode as well. Specifically, Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd with the Pacific City crisis, the spaghetti crisis that is. We haven't actually talked about character actress Margot Markendale. Or is that how you pronounce it?
We haven't. Yeah.
A recurring character throughout the series. Sorry, award-winning character actress. And she appears throughout the entire series as almost like a psychotic criminal, I'd say. And she rammed her boat into a spaghetti crater with the oil from her boat being leaked into the ocean, the spaghetti crater, and the Secretariat balloon, which BoJack chose to promote, which was basically a mirror saying, "You are Secretariat." Like that combines to cook the spaghetti straight above Pacific Ocean. And one of the funniest lines of the episode was, like, "We just need to put some oil in there." No, putting oil in pasta is a myth. It doesn't exist. And I was just cracking up laughing at that point, which was the first time in a long time in BoJack where I was full out laughing.
And I think it needed something lighter like that happening. I can't actually remember the fallout of that. Do they rescue Pacific?
They rescued Pacific City because basically Mr. Peanut Butter at the start of the series buys, for no apparent reason, a bunch of spaghetti strainers.
That's it, yeah. And it's completely stupid, and it does kind of take it back to series one where it was just like really ridiculous comedy happening in each one. But I do think it needed that, especially with how serious it got in the previous episode. You needed that moment of levity to bring it back. But the final part of the
with his oh wait a sec, I just want to say before that before the final part of the episode where they go into the Nina Simone song, which was very poignant and very, very nice at the end of the series. Really like that. Mr. Peanut Butter sells off Cabra Cadabra, which was the cab company which he owned, with stripper whales as his cab drivers. There was a 3-part share in the company, and that was Mr. Peanut Butter, Todd, and Emily. So they all become millionaires because of it.
Yeah,
which is unusual.
And that's a great character arc for Todd, but what's even great is that he leaves his entire check as a tip to the waitress in the restaurant where they're eating. So he's back to square one.
Regular old Todd. Now, there is a reason why he did that, and I think I'm agreeing with this theory as well. A lot of people have said online that Todd left the check because he saw what money does to BoJack, and he doesn't want that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think as well. And I think he's with Emily. He's happy with who he is.
Emily? This was actually something I wanted to talk about heavily. This is the best display of an asexual person I've ever seen done on TV. Because the way he's describing, like, he doesn't know whether he likes men or women. He just likes people.
He likes their company.
He likes the company, doesn't matter what it is, but he doesn't look for a relationship. He doesn't want that. He just wants friendships. He doesn't want to commit to anything. And the way it's displayed, and Emily's very accepting of it, and I quite liked Emily's character as a member of the series, and I want to see more of Emily within the next series, which I think we will. Because I think a lot will be based around Todd and Emily's kind of relationship maybe growing, or maybe Emily kind of becoming more involved with saying, look, BoJack, this is like being straight with him. Being the first character to be 100% straight with him on how his life is. Because a lot of it is kind of glitter Hollywood. You've got Mr. Peanut Butter always being happy around him. You've got Princess Carolyn trying to look at the business side of things and promote him, saying that he's wonderful. And the only other source of that is Diane, who has said before in the past that he is a one-trick pony. He hasn't got much left, but is also quite a close friend to him. He doesn't really have a character who tells him that he's doing wrong. And
ultimately, I think in the final moments, it's BoJack himself that realizes he is doing wrong, and I think it's setting him up for a place in Series 4 where he can change that. So just rounding off for all the characters, I'm reading off Wikipedia here. Diane receives a job writing for a feminist blog because she was unhappy with where she was, just doing Twitter for pointless like reality TV shows and quiz shows, things like that.
That was picked up after the Hank After Dark episode where she kind of went to that kind of level where she went like publicly said, I don't agree with what this is doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Princess Carolyn pursues her newly realized dream to become a manager, so she's progressing with her career, and I think also her relationship side as well with her
is going quite well.
And then we ultimately get to the final scene where after BoJack is fleeing...
Oh, wait a sec. Todd has no more money, but is happy with the company of Emily, who does have £1 million.
Mm-hmm. And
Mr. Peanut Butter has, because of his public stunt saving the entirety of a city, he is being prompted to become the next governor of Hollywood. So basically a politician.
Mm-hmm. And that just leaves BoJack where he's driving across country. He's just fleeing. He's lost. He's just going down a highway with no destination. The foot on the pedal increases. He gets faster and faster, and he just closes his eyes and takes his hands off the wheel. And this is where I thought it was going to be a very, very different ending to what we got. I did think the car was going to career off the road, and then it was going to cut to black, and that would leave us for the next bit, especially because you prepped me before saying that based on the ending of Series 3, you didn't know how it could physically carry on into the next one. I did think it was going to go off the road and possibly die. But he sees a group of horses in the desert running, marathon running.
How do you see this? Because I see this in a very specific way. I want to know how you see it first.
So I'll just finish off this. So BoJack slams on the brakes, looks there, and he gets inspired. I think it recalls back to Secretariat, clearly the runner. It recalls back to the monkey that says it gets easier. And I think ultimately that's what, he will take away from it. I think he's found a route now, whether he's going to join up with them or whether it was just like a sort of metaphor, just some kind of life lesson where he will now go back and change himself. I don't know. I think it would be kind of out of character if he did just join this running troupe, but maybe I think it's just served as a visual way for him to realize he's not hopeless yet. It's not time to end it yet. There's still much more meant for him. And I think Series 4, we're going to see a changed BoJack and the slow climb up that hill to get to where it needs to be.
I'm going to say something different then.
Okay.
Throughout the entire series, the main theme of BoJack is finding his identity. Where does he fit in the world? And he goes and he stops on the road and he sees horses running in a field, how they are meant to be, like what they are naturally good at, what they are naturally born to be. And he sees like a fleet of them and they're sweating, and he sees that in himself. He sees that I'm an actor, I'm trying to perform a life which is definitely going against my instincts. And I think the next series is going to be about him kind of taking more of his instincts on. And maybe taking on a bit more horse-like characteristics, maybe even. I mean, this is him who has lost everything that he knows about himself. He's lost all of his friends, and all he has left is this one remaining image of seeing horses in the wild, free and without care. And I think that will be where he goes in the next series, maybe with controlled ideology about not caring anymore about whether he is successful or not, but more of the fact of being more poignant and maybe being a bit more horse-like.
But how long can you keep him there for? I think that I think the draw of Hollywood will bring him back, and whether that will be for the better or for the worst, we'll find out in Series 4. But
very quickly before we finish, where do you think Series 4 is going? How do you think Series 4 will end? Is the main question.
Jesus. I think it's going to be pretty much the same as you said. He's trying to find his identity. Maybe if he does join up with the running crew, but I think for whatever reason it is, I think that he ultimately won't be happy there either, and there'll be some kind of draw back to Hollywood that will take him back there. He will still have learned everything he had from these horses or from this image he's seen as a free version of himself, an improved version of himself. And I think that that's ultimately what the arc of 4 is going to be. It's going to be him trying desperately. I don't think we're going to see as much drunk BoJack. I do think we're really going to see a change in him now, especially if we think that it'll probably finish at season 6, because I don't know if this is a show that can just keep going on and on. We do need a clear beginning, middle, an end to the
Yeah.
character. And I think with series 3, we have seen that middle. I think the next 3 series are going to be that slow climb back to the person he wants to be. In terms of how 4's going to end, I think we're going to see some more of Penny, maybe more of Charlotte. I think we're just going to see him try and patch up all his friendships again. And I think people will be much more accepting of him towards the end, although there is clearly going to be that one detrimental effect which will take it into 5 and 6, because you can't just end it at 4. You can't just have him reach there. We've seen a slow, steady decline over 3 series. We need to see a slow, steady incline back up to...
I think this one is going to go differently. I think that this one's going to continue with the theme of BoJack falling, because we haven't seen him fall to his latest depths yet, and this the entire show is meant to mirror the life of Secretariat, and I think he's going to try and commit suicide, and he's going to fail, and the friends around him are going to build him back up from there. I think that maybe one of the things that might push him towards that, I think that we haven't seen enough of Sarah Lynn yet. Even though she is dead, I think there is more still there. And I think maybe a behind-the-scenes footage of the old BoJack Horseman show, where she says that, like, maybe off-screen, where she says, "Oh, he's my dad, and I respect him with everything in the world, and I would trust him with my life." And maybe that would, like, kick him across to try and maybe possibly commit suicide. But I think we might see Wanda again.
Yeah. I just think that this series won't have a greater focus on the relationships of BoJack in terms of romantic ones. I think he's going to be...
No, I don't think Wanda will be a romantic relationship. I think she'll be just brought back into the picture.
Yeah.
I think that there'll be a lot of focus on Mr. Peanut Butter going for government. I think he will get government. I think that Diane will betray Mr. Peanut Butter, as is said in the magazine. Would you be willing to give dirt on Mr. Peanut Butter? Maybe that sabotages his campaign, and that leads to maybe a divorce or some sorts. Maybe even this series, maybe everyone else's relationships collapsing and BoJack's getting better. Who knows? And maybe people coming to BoJack for assistance instead of BoJack going to everyone else.
Yeah, so there's a lot of places it can go now, and really the story has just taken off with 2 and 3. The sky's the limit really with this series, and now I will be watching series 4. I won't have to catch up like I did last time. I'll be an avid viewer. I will have the year waits between each season as I have now. But yes, so we'll just finish off with our recommendation. I definitely recommend BoJack Horseman. On the surface, you may think it's just like a cartoon comedy, which it absolutely is, but there is a lot of stuff going in there, as we've discussed in the review. There's a lot of themes going in there. There's a lot of tragedy with the character, but that's ultimately what makes it fascinating. I don't agree with people when they say that they just wanted fun BoJack. I think the crux of the story and the most interesting meat to the story is seeing him go through this turmoil, which I look forward to seeing in the next however many series are going to be, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, however long it goes on for. How about you?
No, I completely agree, and I'm just looking forward to it, really. I really am. Fun little facts, just to end it on. The character who plays the dear friend Charlotte is actually played by Olivia Wilde.
Oh,
I
really?
did not know that. Yeah.
Oh, no, neither did I. And I was actually going through all the episodes, and it tells you all celebrities that cameoed as a voice. There's a voice actor like Weird Al. There was Stanley Tucci. Fred Savage, Dave Franco. There's loads and loads of celebrity guests in this one.
There have been so many. Wait a second, I just want to find out. Jessica Biel has actually played Jessica Biel in this, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I find is hilarious.
It's great when they can get that, when they can get celebrities into it. I'm just having a look now. Paul McCartney played himself.
Yep, when he jumped out of the cake.
Amy Schumer, Henry Winkler, George Takei. Ricky Gervais. Jesus, there's loads. I didn't even realise.
Dave Franco.
Yeah.
Wiz Khalifa played himself.
But
Daniel Radcliffe actually played Daniel Radcliffe in that one episode.
I thought so. That was brilliant. I loved that episode so much.
That ending where it's like, oh, I wonder who plays me. BoJack, just go ahead and say it. We all know it. Think of the money going to charity.
Elijah
I don't
Wood.
know. Who plays Harry Potter?
But yeah, I've pretty much said everything I can on
I'm done as
BoJack.
well.
Are you done? Okay, so that will do it for our review on BoJack Horseman, the first part in our 3-part Netflix 2016 guide. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of BoJack Horseman, which is your favourite season, who's your favourite character, and what are your predictions for season 4. Anything you like, please do drop us a comment. We are jumping on for review pretty much right now, I think, of Stranger Things, or we're going to have a break.
I have 45 minutes until I need to go out, so...
Right, that probably won't do it justice. We'll have a review up at some point for Stranger Things and Luke Cage. I'm 2 episodes away from finishing Luke Cage. Probably finish that today. Really loving that series. Yeah, on top of that, more movie reviews, more reactions from myself. Yeah, so please do hit that subscribe button. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.